Today we're installing the Oxwerkz Performance crank seal plate on an E92 335i. The procedure is exactly the same for an E90 335i or an E93 335i. First, remove these two bolts holding the air intake duct on. They're T20. Now we need to take this vacuum line off, and then take this boot out. You have two clips here, one on each side. You may need a small screwdriver to remove the other side. There we go. Just pull this out, set it aside. We need to remove the radiator fan, so first come on the driver's side of the vehicle if you're in the US and pull the radiator fan connector off. You depress both sides here and then pull it out. There's a bolt in this corner of your radiator you'll want to remove. Your radiator fan bolt is there. It is a T25. Mine was stripped, so I've loosened it off camera. And it is just a silver plastic screw. We are now underneath the car. You'll need to unbolt this heat exchanger from the radiator fan. It's just this one bolt. And to do this, you need to remove all the underbody panels on your car. My car did not come with underbody panels, so I have nothing to remove. The previous owner also put a bolt that is way too long and put a nut as a spacer, but this, I believe, is a T27. You want to unclip this hose from the top of the radiator fan, and I like to put it over here, and then you're ready to pull the radiator fan out. You'll need to push this driver's side clip open before you raise the radiator fan out of the car. The charge pipe on the driver's side of the car connects to the radiator fan with this C-clip onto this rubber grommet. You'll need to pull it off of this before you can raise the fan too. The C-clip likes to get stuck on the ledge below the grommet as you pull the fan out as well. So once you get the fan off, you'll be able to identify where this is pretty quickly. There is a T60 bolt on the tensioner right here that you need to undo to get this belt off, but you'll never fit it in between this and here, this intake tube. So what I do is I release these two T30 bolts on the intake tube, and that lets me pull it out just a little bit so that I can get a T60 on there and release the belt. I'll do that now. I like to break it loose by hand first, and then and these bolts have a built-in bushing, so they'll stay where they are. You just need to release them. These are overclosed. That lets you pull this back just a little bit. And you turn clockwise. While turning clockwise, pull the belt off, and then release, and then pull that out, and then you can pull the serpentine belt off. And just continue to pull that off. Please excuse the sound of rain. I have my garage door open and started thunderstorming. But what you're going to want to do is take your E10 external torx 10 socket and stick it on these bolts on the crankshaft pulley. And you're going to want to remove those. You do not want to touch the crank bolt in the center of this pulley because that holds your timing gear on. You do not need to remove that to pull the crank pulley off. So I like to hold the pulley and just remove the bolts like that one by one. And sometimes these can get sort of stuck on there and need some motivation to come free from the face even when all the bolts are removed. So just do that and you can put the crank plate on. So we're under the car looking up. That's the crank after we remove the seal. You see a bolt there, so to be clear, a bolt here and a bolt here that we'll need to undo to put the crank seal in, and crank seal will go like that around there once these bolts are gone. I'm using a gear wrench, external Torx ratcheting wrench to get to this bottom bolt here. With those original bolts out, this is how the crank plate fits in the car. It can hold itself up without any bolts, but you're going to want to start threading in the included bolts they gave you. So we've begun to thread the screws into the crank plate, and right now I have a 6mm hex on a 6-inch extension, and because they're socket head cap screws, I can now go all the way from underneath the subframe and fit that in there. The original factory bolts are torque to yield and they're aluminum, and I believe the torque spec that BMW calls for is 10 Newton meters plus 90 degrees. So it's probably somewhere between 10 and 15 foot-pounds. These bolts are not torque to yield and they won't stretch, and they'll cut threads out before they stretch. So be careful when installing them. I wouldn't go any higher than 15 Newton meters. After you have the crank pulley installed, you're going to want to torque all the bolts down in a star-ish pattern at 25 Newton meters, which is about 18 foot-pounds. You'll notice I am holding the crank pulley to stop it from rotating as I do this. It doesn't want to rotate, but I'm holding it just in case it slips. So we have the crank plate installed and the pulley in place. Everything else is pretty simple. It's just reverse removal. It's getting pretty annoying to do this with the camera in the way, so I'm going to end the video here and finish this up.